guys, and welcome back to another episode of
And on that note,
that was fun.
So
Yeah,
Annette, you were talking about Andy Peters. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah. So Andy Peters was on Good Morning Great Britain, the one with Piers Morgan, that one. So
Good Morning Britain.
Good Morning exactly. Britain. And he was doing some cash giveaway, he was presenting, and Piers Morgan was asking him, why do you think there's no representation for your community at the BAFTAs? And Andy Peters was like, let's get straight to the point. Am I not the only person of color standing here in this whole studio right now? And he called them out live, and they actually zoomed out and showed the whole studio, and Andy was the only one. He was the only black man there. And he was like, the problem is the people at the top are not hiring people of color in the industry, and there isn't enough people of color in the industry to hire, because people are not hiring.
So, Annette, do you know what the saddest thing about it was? Do you know what the saddest thing? So, Andy Peters made that comment because I saw what you said, and Piers Morgan said, this morning, can you imagine? Piers Morgan actually went on the news this morning and said, until Andy Peters said that, they didn't even notice that there wasn't no other black people there. They didn't even notice. Piers Morgan said it himself. They did not even notice.
I'm surprised Piers actually said
and I just thought to myself,
and that's what we talk about. There's that privilege. But do you know who always notices when they're the only black people in the room?
Yes.
Black people.
No, when they're the only white. Yes, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. We're the only ones that notice when we're the token person. How many times have you gone to work and you literally go into a meeting or whatever it is, and you look around and you're like, frick, I'm the only black person here. We notice. It's you that has the privilege, because you don't have to notice. You don't have to care. You don't have to wonder. It's us that have to wonder. And do you know one thing someone said, and we can all relate to this, but it was just a flyaway comment on the internet, but it was just that kind of little thing that lets us know. It was like, being black is when you have to check if a country's racist before you got there. I was just like,
and you know why that's crazy, because I do that several times. Like literally, there's certain places we won't go to.
It's normal
because of racism.
It's normal to us.
Do you know what? I've never actually done that. I'll be honest with you.
No, I've never. Before I take my flights, guys, I literally Google how. There's certain places I just can't go to.
Do you do that?
I've never done it before.
You'll have to enlighten me, because I don't know about it. I've never done that.
And I think sometimes it maybe.
Or I say, how safe is this so and so country for black people? No, I have to check it. Are people getting kidnapped?
I think what happens is sometimes you experience something which shapes your actions moving forward. So I'll never forget when I went to Spain, for example. I've been to Spain.
I was going to say that. I don't like Spain.
I went to Spain. The first time I went to Spain, the stairs. I've never been stared at like that in my whole life. And then
it's crazy because Spain has English people living there. It's wild.
But it's not about English people. It's about black people.
I've never actually experienced anything in Spain.
Oh, so I've experienced a lot of racism in Spain.
And I remember they had
in your field though as well, George. Yours is also different in your case.
No, I was on holiday. This was way before. I was in uni. I was in uni, and this was way before I've experienced racism. Sorry, Daphne. Sorry.
Really?
It's okay. It's a similar story, to be honest with you, George. I was in uni, went there with my friends, and literally the stairs. And I'll never forget. It was the center of Barcelona, and I think on the one of the theatre things, it was a massive gollywog face, and it was just like I was literally like, oh, is that how they are like here? And then I guess several years later, I did go with work. And again, in my workspaces, more often than not, I am one of the few black people.
Very few.
And I remember walking out of the big auditorium, because it was for a conference, and you can see people literally looking like, what the hell is she doing here? Because they don't understand. Because unfortunately, in a lot of those countries, black people are not well dressed. They're usually immigrants from Africa. So they're looking at it because they can't understand why you're in this space.
Or do you know what they are? They are prostitutes. The black people are prostitutes there.
Oh my goodness. That's the first. Do you know what? When we went to Paris to record the podcast, was it last year? Last year, that was the first time I'd actually been exposed to that kind of environment. Because, we went out, we had a table, we had a turn up, we were like, da la la. And I was like, why is everyone looking at us like that? Kind of thing.
It's so interesting you say that, because I didn't notice.
They've never seen.
I noticed.
George was enlightening me.
Black people who look good.
Black people who look
good.
Who
and the females without a sugar daddy on the table. Remember, we were sat next to a girl with her sugar daddy.
Yeah.
So they're just thinking,
They were like, I've never seen this before.
But not even just that, guys. You know the kind of black people that they see the black people that have definitely had that, literally like the runaway people who are running away, who are refugees, basically. That's who they're used to. So they're looking at those dusty black people that they see that obviously have come from a hard life and they're trying to find refuge in their country. So when they see black people that are looking good or looking well, remember how when we were in Paris, when that woman, when she first saw us, and she was like, oh, hello, blah, blah, blah. When she saw us come back again, remember? Yes, remember the receptionist. Remember when,
oh my goodness.
Yes, remember when we first got to the hotel? Now, when we first got to the hotel, she kind of looked at us like, hello, blah, blah, blah. Remember, we wasn't dressed or anything like that.
Yeah.
When we walked out, remember, we went upstairs, we got ready, changed, we done our hair, we came back downstairs. She was like, oh my God, you look so beautiful. You look so good. We were like, idiot thing. So, did you not see us before?
Conk your head.
See us before?
And you know, it was
like, do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? But that was straight in our face racism.
Yeah.
That was straight up racism. That was straight up racism, because she couldn't comprehend in her mind. When she saw us, she was kind of thinking, ew, who are these black girls? What are these black girls doing?
Rolling up to my
this hotel, they must be lost. And then when she saw us coming out, she was kind of like, oh wow, you know, she was on that kind of flex. And that's how it always is. And that's,
it's just so
like
sad
going to Spain. I don't personally like going to Spain.
I've never been to Spain.
You've never been to Spain? No. But I think most black people that have experienced racism in a European country, like bad, it is from Spain. Spain is quite,
I hear a lot of notorious stories in Spain. I'm shocked about Barcelona, though, that being a city. I'm very shocked.
And like I said, it's similar to the UK, that it's not overt. No one's calling me names. No one's being violent towards me. No one's telling me I can't come into this shop or that. It's not that. It's just people are staring at you. And I think sometimes people forget that just because no one's being violent towards me or harming me physically, there is a
it doesn't mean that it's not affecting me mentally.
It affects you when people are literally staring at you like, why are you staring at me? Have I got like 3 heads? Like, what is different about me? The only thing that is different about me compared to any of these people is the color of my skin. And it's one of those things where the staring that you're doing is all your judgment coming to you. Everything that you think about me is coming to you, and you're just looking at me because you can't comprehend why I don't fit in this judgment that you've made of a black person. And that is so painful, because I'm literally in the same space as you, and I'm not thinking anything negative towards you. Like, my mind's not rushing with 101 things about this is a white person and the white people are the slaves, and then like, I'm not thinking that. So why are
do you know what the most ironic thing is out of all of this is that I was listening to something earlier on today, and somebody said that, oh, but white people experience racism. Where, please? One thing I can say is that every single person will experience some type of prejudice or like maybe discrimination in one way or another. But when it comes to racism, how can white people say that they experience racism? Like, I'm not saying it's not possible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not possible at all. But for the fact that somebody could make that comment as their comeback to be like, oh, but white people experience racism as well. Like, it's not only a black thing. How? Where? When?
I don't think that's necessarily the right
because
answer.
As far as I'm concerned, you guys are always at the top.
I don't think that it's necessarily the right answer now for like this movement. Like, it's not an answer to come back and be like, oh,
exactly.
Black Lives Matter.
With them saying all lives matter. No.
But I am going to say that it's true that white people have experienced racism in a certain place. Like, I know for me in Zambia, there are white people that experience racism only because it's just like they're white and they're in that.
I'm sorry, but the petty in me is thinking so freaking what?
And I'm saying that because, and also in South Africa, one of my good friends, she's South African, she's white.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example, Annette? Can you give us an example? Because I mean, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying before I kind of say no. Like, when you say they experience racism, can you give us an example of what they described as racism?
In my language, they would refer to them as a certain word, or I say they, my people, black people, my Zambian people would refer to them in a certain word. Or I know that in South Africa, my friend, she's South African, she used to live here, but she's gone back now. My friend has, like, issues getting into certain restaurants or things like.
Is she white South African or black South African?
She's white South African.
Okay.
Her parents are from South Africa. They were born there. She was also born there. So they thought, okay, let's move here.
So when you say certain restaurants,
so
are these
I'm
black
saying
restaurants?
in a certain place, in some places in the world, it is flipped on its head. Like it just.
Okay,
is.
can I just make a comment? I feel like that's fine if that's what those people have experienced. You know, they've got their experiences. But I think, you know, one thing people forget about racism, that racism cannot exist without power. And I think whilst there's dictionary definitions of racism, I think most people who are learned and really try and understand prejudices, and specifically racism, understand that racism is a power construct. So racism cannot exist without the evoking of someone's power over somebody else. So the reason why racism exists in a lot of Western countries is because the people at the top are able to oppress the people at the bottom who happen to not be the same race. So there's an oppression element to racism because of power, right? So in its isolation, calling someone a name is not racism. It's then saying they're called that name and then you discriminating and oppressing them because of that. So that whole thing, yes, it's racism.
That's why I said it's prejudice and discrimination.
So I that particular person that spoke about, they've called me a name, they've not experienced racism. I can call you a name right now. I'm just saying. But that's what you said. So I'm
saying that's one of the examples.
Yeah, but and I want to say that particular example
constantly
that particular example about the name calling, I just wanted to clarify that somebody calling you a name is not racist. It's the other stuff that they can do that goes along with it. So when you said that person who can't go into certain spaces because they're black spaces and they've been told that you can't come here, blah blah blah, fine, that may be the case, but I think it's not fair for them to kind of say I've been racist, because we can't look at racism in places like South Africa and South African countries without talking about the segregation that happened in those countries and the apartheid. So at the end of the day, a lot of the time that is in response to a lot of the issues, and we know that a lot of those countries they have knock-on issues such as xenophobia because of the issues that they've had over the last 20, 30, 40 years. So I appreciate that those people are having that experience. Let's not pretend that it's come from nowhere and they're just experiencing it. It's not from nowhere. Those people have literally, those people that I'm sure have probably experienced racism on a daily basis by themselves at the hands of white people. So they are just saying, do you know what you've done to me is what I'll do to you. And that is actually fear. And what a lot of white people fear that black people are going to do to them. And a lot of the time, what you'll find is that when they talk about their experience, they exaggerate them. Not saying that these individuals are exaggerating, but I just feel like there's often that kind of thing. Is like, oh, but I experience racism just like you do. And it's like, let's not compare, because
it's definitely on a larger scale for black people.
I've never had that experience or had any of these people say to me, it's been parallel to what you've been through. But I am saying that they have acknowledged it for them as it being racism. It's not, I don't know every single account they've had. I don't know how tough their lives have been. All I know is I know these people. I know that they're of a different color to me, and they have and are entitled to their own experiences. But that's all I'm just saying. But I can't not acknowledge all those things.
Yeah, but I think in those countries, what a lot of people have experienced is xenophobia, because when you go to South Africa, Nigerians are even treated differently. And that's not racism, it's xenophobia. And I think it happens that these people are white, but what they actually experience is xenophobia, because what a lot of the South Africans have is that kind of deep resentment because they've not been able to move forward in their own countries, and they're seeing people of different backgrounds from different countries come in and be successful. So it's that kind of a resentment which we're seeing as displayed as xenophobia. I don't think actually a lot of the time it's racism. It's the fact that you're different and you're not South African, and actually you're getting further in South Africa than me as a South African. So I think obviously, like you said, then I don't know every account. We can't know every account, but I think with those particular instances, it's too surface for us to make a conclusion and accept that. You have to go a bit deeper, I think.
It's a lot. I just don't know how we can still be having this conversation so many years into everything. And my real concern is for our generation, the ones below and the ones to come after them, because I don't want them to have to grow up and meet this crap anymore. Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like it's a hopeless, you know, it's not like there's no solution, or there's not a way we can work towards it, or there's not a way we can have more conversations or educate more or do more. But it's just like, it's enough. Like,
I think
like
until the people at the top change.
Said, like, not even just that. I think black people need to go into the police. Black people need to go into all these different people that are forcing racism amongst us. We need to be amongst them too. We need to fight our way and push ourselves to the top. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Obviously, I know it's harder than just saying it, because they don't make it easy for us to get to the top. But until then, I saw a video yesterday on Instagram of a white policeman pushing or attacking one of the protesters in the crowd, a black protester, and a black policewoman literally grabbed him and started telling him about himself. And that's what we need. If there's no one amongst them to tell them what's right and what's wrong, they're going to continue stepping all over us. They're going to continue lynching us and doing whatever it is that they think is normal to get rid of us. Like, I actually think we need to be amongst them to show them. Obviously, they know right from wrong from right and right from wrong, but what are we actually going to do?
And I think that's part of the challenge, Danielle. If they know, why do I have to tell you?
Yeah,
they don't know.
He knew what he did in that moment.
I think they know.
In that moment, when he pushed that protester over, he did it firstly out of anger, and that's the problem with a lot of
and because
white people
they just
in
have the
powerful
authority
places.
and the power.
But he did it out of anger, and we spoke about this in one of our episodes around, like, even just rearing children, and we spoke about you don't discipline out of anger, and I think a lot of the time is or anger or fear. Remember we spoke about that, and a lot of the policing in America, a lot of the policing in America comes out of fear. Oh my gosh, I will do you before you do me. That's that whole thing. And somebody actually made a very good point. Sorry, my hair is like
that's the reason why they end up shooting before.
They think they
that's
shoot
that's why they end up shooting before anything, because before you even can even put your hand up to be like, oh look, I'm unarmed. All they will do is then say, oh, he was going to shoot me, and then they shoot, and then after they go and check, they're just like, actually he didn't have anything on him. But just kind of again on that note as to what we were saying, I don't necessarily want to move it away from what we're currently talking about, but just kind of progressing the conversation a little bit further. So you know how we obviously done the whole the Blackout Tuesday, etc. We can't be muted and all of that just today, and it was extremely important, don't get me wrong. There was something that the whole point of this whole Blackout Tuesday was that how like the black people weren't going to necessarily like spend any money or like or we were going to support each other, like that there was an actual cause behind why we actually had to do that. But my thought process around it was that, yes, whilst it was a good, a good movement, and I participated in the movement myself, but I just thought, how many black people actually then end up going to support other black people? How many other black people end up buying from black businesses and all of this stuff? Because it's okay for us to do it. It's okay for us to do it. I don't even know whether we're in competition with ourselves. I don't even know if that's the case. But I almost think to myself, so okay, after today, we've all done Black Tuesday, we're supporting black people, we're all together, we're all this, we're all that, then what? Because at the end of the day, we still won't follow each other. You still so we can't even follow each other because our pride will not allow us to follow each other, even on Instagram. We can't like something. We won't buy each other's products. We'd rather buy Pretty Little Thing. We'll rather buy House of CB. We'll rather buy all of these other things, but we won't give back into, let's say, our own businesses. But for one day we were like, not everyone, don't get me wrong. So I'm not just saying about hair and makeup and beauty stuff, because people always buy into black people that are, you're not going to necessarily buy your weave and whatnot from necessarily like a white retailer. You're most likely, if you're black, going to go to another black person to buy your hair or do makeup and stuff like that. But I was thinking about products more so than ever. Like, okay, fine. How many of us actually do go out and actually support other black businesses? How many of us are actually united in that way ourselves? I don't feel like we should just unite because, someone's died or something dramatic like this has had to happen. I wish it wasn't under these circumstances and we could just be all supportive in general. It was just the observation that I thought of today at some point, and I just thought, who knows? Maybe things might change. This might
be the beginning of it. This might be the start of it. Who knows? Because I feel like now more than ever, a lot of people are trying to take a stand and put their foot down for what's right. So let's just hope and pray that it isn't just for one day.
So. I kind of just feel like I think there's an element of people asking themselves, what do you want? And as a community, what do we want? But also individually, what do you want and what makes a difference to you? Because I think even the four of us here have may potentially have different perspective of around what good looks like and what progress looks like and what the first step looks like. So I feel like, you know, we can only do what we can do in terms of what resonates with us. Personally, the same way we would do in any other space. So you're right, you know, there will be some people that literally after this, they'll go and start clicking on all these household CB, blah, 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 and they'll carry on and they'll just do whatever they want to do. And that being said, but I think that's not so much the issue. I think with those brands and those retailers and those spaces, I think it's less so about, oh, it's black owned or it's white owned, but it's the fact that we're not in your space. So you don't hire us, you don't advocate for us, you don't support us, you're not diverse in any way. So I think I'm not suddenly going to be like, oh, if it's not a black owned business, it's a no. But it's kind of be like, what are their principles?
No.
How did they act? What did they?
I'm not saying that whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. Like, I get what you're saying, but I was just saying from the perspective of like we're doing this whole, okay, like today has been like absolutely amazing the way how everyone has jumped on board to this whole Blackout Tuesday thing. Like, I didn't realize that everybody, like literally my timeline was black.
Feel left out
and to be fair, the people, I saw literally one person actually post a picture of themselves today, and I was kind of like, I see you. You are part of the problem. So I didn't even say anything, but anyway, I was just like, anyway. But it just made me think to myself, like, you know what, like we could actually make a proper movement out of it, but why does it need to be at for such a course, for such a bad thing? Why did it have to be a negative situation? Why does somebody have to die in order for us? Like, I feel like collectively black people around the world, obviously not every black people, but it's kind of like collectively black people around the world today were like united than what I've probably ever seen before. Like, maybe on the gram it's more high profile because it's on social media and it's visible to us. I'm not saying that people haven't gone out and met collectively together like in person, but on the gram, from this instance, I was kind of like, wow, this event or this protest or this silent protest was put out in a space of how many days or how many hours, and it's made this much momentum around the world. Like, it's literally shut down the internet to some degree. And I was kind of like, imagine if we just had that passion for, I'm not saying that you have to be like being pro-black doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that black people do, but I just thought, imagine if we had that much passion just in general for things to do with black people, in terms of elevating black people instead of propelling black people and making us higher and better and whatnot. Why does it have to be this kind of situation where we were so united and we had like one voice and we were in unity and all of that stuff? That's what that was the only thing that I felt was a bit sad about the whole thing. But again, maybe I looked at it from a negative perspective as much as I tried to look at the positives as well. I don't know. Maybe I was just looking at it from a negative perspective.
Oh, I don't think you've been looking at it from a negative perspective at all. I guess what I was trying to get at is like, we are all accountable to ourselves. We're also accountable to our brothers and sisters. Our circle. So like, we are to some degree in control of the events we go to, the events and spaces we create, the places we patronize. And so you're right, why does it have to be this one thing that has happened before we kind of take action and do something like this? But I'm always in conversation with people around what more can we do, what more can I individually do, you know what I mean? And I think we all have different things that we individually do to make sure we have conversations, we create spaces, we bring up topics, we do things, and it's not everything that's going to be on social media, but I think as long as we are doing things, and I think past this current series of events such as the Blackout Tuesday and the protests and stuff that happen, we owe it to ourselves to kind of be like, don't let this die. Don't let this be the end of the conversation. What next are we doing? Should we do another Blackout are we going to remember, like, because that will kind of, like you say, Georgina, show that authenticity and that movement around, are people really going to change? Are people really about this life? Or was it just for that day because someone passed away and it was just like, oh, that's what we did that day and it's never thought of again? So
I literally spoke to one of my friends today, he's a guy, black guy, and he just moved to America not long ago, indefinitely, like he's just moved there. But he was talking to me today about, like, how do we move forward? Not how do we move forward, but after my page is black today, what am I doing tomorrow? He literally asked me that question, and I was just like,
but it's true.
I don't know.
That's what I was thinking.
He said to me, because what am I going to do? Like, go back to listening to music about bitches, gangs, and hoes, and like, like what am I? You know, he was just like, I'm a solution-based person, right? And I know that it's not enough to just say, okay, it's done now, let's move forward. Something has to be done. So he was like, you know, maybe I can start mentoring people, maybe I can start, you know, educating more people, or doing speeches or something. Like, there's something that I can do. I'm from the UK, things are done differently there, I get it, but there's something that I've learned there that I can bring here and I can make a change. And I was just like, dude, I don't know, you're asking the right questions, you're answering your own questions, you're on the right warpath. So I guess the only thing you can do is try, because it was
there's no right or wrong answer,
because we're still here. So it hasn't been working what we've been trying to do, or what people have been trying to do before, all those years before, because it's still here. We're missing something. So you just have to try. Like, you just have to try.
I wouldn't say it's not working. I think sometimes people look at like a problem, and if that problem isn't solved, like as in racism is completely eradicated, that means, oh, what we're doing is not working. Like, there's plenty of people that have been doing stuff for years. There's plenty of people that have been doing things for just a small amount of time, and they are making headway in their own, you know, arenas and spaces. So I think, you know, like, it's a journey, and it will be an ongoing journey, because, you know, we know that there's the same way it didn't take a couple of days or a week or so for racism to come. It's not going to take a week for racism to go away. Like, it's going to be something that we have to kind of make sure we're constantly speaking up about. But like, I think your point earlier, and then I'm not sure who made it, but it's like, I'm in a primarily white space at work. And, you know, it's kind of like, how do you have that conversation? How do you facilitate? So I think we are all thinking of ways to make sure that we hold our counterparts and our groups and brands and whoever is accountable. But it's not just easy as kind of saying, I'm just going to go in there all guns blazing and be like, well, you got, you know, it's like everyone's, I think, thinking about, okay, how do I approach this? Like, what is the way? But I think that the desire is there, the intention is there. And like I said, just by keeping ourselves accountable. So I can literally tell you girls and say, guys, I really want to do X, Y, Z. So now I've told you, you can be I can be accountable to you. Be like, Daphne, have you done that thing you said you're going to do? Like, do you know what I mean? As opposed to me just being like, well,
yeah.
But what happens when people change their minds? Like, what happens when they back out? Or what happens when they're questioned too much and they're just like, okay, I forfeit? Like, what happens? What do we do? Do you still continue to pull them up, or do you just be like, okay, well, it's a lost cause on
when people what do you mean, sorry? Like, when,
like, if someone says they're gonna do something. So like, for me, for instance, like, I know a lot of people that have been like, over the years, and even before I had like proper product to say, would be like, oh, okay, I love this piece, I'm gonna buy it. As soon as you make it again, like, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna get my size, this, that, and the other. Nothing. They know what's happening. They know I have an online store. They know what's going on. But
I mean, if they're not buying the product but still
not
supporting you in other ways, then
no, they're not.
Okay, yeah. Then
there's no.
Throw them in a bin.
For me, it's like, if you say you're going to do something, you have someone to hold you accountable. People can change their mind within all rights to change your mind. It's your prerogative. But I'm just saying, what do you do then? Do you still look at them with the same integrity and be like, oh,
no? Because we just had that conversation.
I think at the end of the day,
go on, George.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to say that if that's the case, if it's like from a business perspective, and someone said that, oh, I'm going to buy your products and etc., and they don't, I think at the end of the day, like, just don't place any expectations in anyone. No. I think from when, if you don't have any expectations from people, then you've got no need to almost be offended by what they do or what they don't do to some degree, because it's kind of like, okay, it is what it is. And as Daphne said at the beginning, people are fickle. People are fickle. They'll say one thing and they will do the complete opposite. They will do the complete opposite and act like they had no recollection of the conversation. And to some degree, even us as individuals, we've all got an element of fickleness within us. Every single one of us. So if any of us was to turn around and say that, oh, but somebody said this to me, I've probably done the same to someone as well. And likewise, someone's probably done the same to me. So in that instance, I wouldn't necessarily look at it as, okay, like, do I look at them in any kind of way, or do I not look at them in a dignified way? I just kind of think people are people at the end of the day. But people, like, that's it. That's how I kind of look at it. And once I've got no expectations from you, you can't disappoint me, because I've made up in my mind that you can possibly disappoint me, and it's not because you mean to disappoint me, or you're being unkind, or you want to be malicious about it. It's just how people are. It's just how people are. That's how I look at it
earlier. Like, we have to put ourselves in a position where we are in those spaces at the top, where we are in those powerful places, and we have to really push ourselves to be in those positions, to be able to affect that change constantly, and to be on top of it, and to keep people accountable for their actions.
Partly because we all know that, there are Black people in the top of some organizations that don't do none. So I don't think it's just
the bounties
getting into the space and just being there to be there. You have to be able to put your neck on the line.
Make a change,
and you have to also be able to put yourself on the line. Making a change is
be prepared to risk it all, basically.
It's not easy. I think, and I mean, we all are in decent spaces. We know people that are in decent spaces and they're successful in their jobs and stuff like that. And a lot of the time, you tread lightly, not because of the fact that you're like up to speak up or whatever, but it's kind of like, again, like I was saying, you potentially jeopardize.
Do you know how long it took me to get to this position?
You're now like, oh, shall I jeopardize my standing in this space now by saying or doing the wrong thing? Because what you're now actually thinking is not that I don't want to speak, but how do I say this? And a lot of the time, at least from me, my perspective anyway, a lot of the time when you want to call out any injustice or prejudice or discrimination, you have to have proof. You can't just go in and be like, well, I'm telling HR are going to look at you and be like, can you give us some clear out and out examples of where this has happened and occurred? And you can't just be like, someone said this to me. And so a lot of the time, it's like that kind of strategic kind of, how do you show this? And that's why a lot of the time when people go in with discrimination suits, they lose.
Because
it's like, they don't have the facts or proof. So I feel like, actually what we need to do is make sure that we're educating ourselves, we're showing people, here's the tools to be able to have those conversations. This is how you bring up something like this. This is how you gather evidence. This is how you make a case, blah, blah, blah. Because I think sometimes people just be like, you need to stand up for yourself. And it's just like, okay.
But you need to know how to stand up for yourself.
You just need to be able to know how to communicate. Because I think sometimes as well, part of the challenge is that ability to have that conversation in a real meaningful way is lacking.
Whereas I'm just like, unfollow, blocker. That's what I did.
blocker.
Sometimes there's no need to have a conversation. It's just block.
It's just like, unfollow.
It was definitely powerful. And it was I mean, it's always a nice moment to be Black, don't get me wrong, but I think today felt extra special. I almost feel like I kind of understand to some degree, like when Martin Luther King and them guys took that long, when they took that walk, that is so famous. I almost felt like it was something like that. Like, it was just like a worldwide thing. Well, I don't know if it was a worldwide thing.
It's beautiful to see everyone being united.
Definitely the UK and America and Africa. I don't know if it was necessarily a worldwide thing, but America and UK definitely stood up in this whole situation. And remember, guys, I think we've said this before, the UK, the population is not that big. So again, you almost think to yourself like, okay, so how much of an impact are we really going to make? You know, when you see these petitions and all the, you know, when, I don't know if you guys are signed up to like these Change.org things where they say, oh, we just need 200,000 more petitions to do this and to do that. These 6 signatures. There's some petitions that you see and you're like, oh, right, they got to 1 million quick for time, boy. And then there's others you see and you're like, why is it taking? We're only on 5,000. Like this has been circulating for 10 months, bruv. How are we still only in this position? And then it just makes you think to yourself, like then how much more are we doing? Do you know? Just us, especially like I was just thinking of a lot of things actually during the course of today.
I signed the petition, but I didn't share it. I don't even know why I didn't share it. I literally signed it and then I locked my phone. So I don't even know. Why didn't I even share it? Maybe I'll share it later. But yeah, it's things like that.
What was the petition about?
The George Floyd fund, about the release of the protesters.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was for that. But
at this point, George Floyd
in the UK.
Who?
Well, they've got the protesting on. Is it? There's one on the 7th.
Like they've got one every day this week.
They had one
in
at
different
Parliament.
Parts of London. Yeah, they had one at Parliament. They had one in Peckham. They're going to have one in Hyde Park. There's quite a few that they've got going on.
I won't be joining. No.
But my thing is,
expect you to.
The thing,
I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, and then you sit your ass down on that ball.
Exactly.
I think it's good how, you know, like how we're all standing to do the protests and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm all down for like, you know, standing up for ourselves and whatnot. But I still feel like, you know, the George Floyd situation was obviously something that happened in America. And yes, it is a worldwide, you know, issue. It is a worldwide problem. But I also think there are still enough issues and there's enough problems in the UK that's happening in our city that we have not decided to go and march and protest for. And I almost think to myself, why has it taken America to make a movement? I think the last time I can say that we proper really stood for something was during the Mark Duggan case. And let's be honest, Mark Duggan was a criminal. Like that was the honest truth of it all. Do you understand? But someone like, let's say if we went to go march for that Belly Majinga woman who was spat on and she died from corona, why are we not marching for those kinds of things? Why are we not protesting for those kinds of things? Because at the end of the day, they came to a verdict. Yeah, but that's only now coming to the forefront because only recently they've come to the verdict that
Transport for London said there was no COVID
that it wasn't linked.
Whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't linked to it, even though the person had said that they had COVID, that they had corona, blah blah blah. And they're saying that she died from underlying like health issues or some, that they're saying something like that. You know,
that's the
so I
scary
almost think
thing
to myself,
about
like,
it. Just
we've got enough issues.
Go on, George.
Maybe it's because we're too used to it. We're like numb.
No, I was just saying. Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that we've got enough issues in the UK that we should also be marching for. What about all those young children that were dying every single month last year? They were giving us an account. The latest news of the young 16-year-old black boy, the youngest news of this, of that. But how was it reported for us? How did we receive it in this news? It was black on black crime. We didn't look at it as anything to do with injustice or anything like that. And maybe it wasn't always injustice, but there would have been aspects and some elements where there was injustice as well. But you know, hey ho, you live and you learn.
I don't know, because I was speaking to another guy friend of mine who also was saying the same. He was saying something similar. He was just saying to me, a big problem for him, especially as a man, is that they don't necessarily know how to treat his community, like our community, because we don't treat ourselves that well. Anyway, look at all those kids that were killing themselves. They're saying that it was all black on black crime, and you know, it's to do with drugs and this and that, and they're not treating themselves well, so they don't know how to treat them anyway. They're just going to be treating themselves that way. How else are they going to know any different?
I think one narrative that I think frustrates a lot of people is the fact that when there's crime in our community, it's seen as black on black crime. But like to Georgina's point, we represent, I think, is it less than a very small percentage
12%.
of people in the UK. So actually, if you look at it, the majority of crime is technically white on white crime, but nobody reports that crime.
We don't describe it as white on white crime.
So I think what
we don't describe it as that.
Is that when there's an issue in our community, and when there's crime in our community, they say, oh, but they look how they treat themselves, and that's the narrative that is portrayed by the media. And I think we have a responsibility as Black people to make sure that we don't describe that for ourselves. Yes, we have issues in our community. Yes, there are issues in all communities. There are issues in white communities, Asian communities. There's all communities. But that narrative around, oh, but look how they treat themselves, is just another excuse for them to treat us negatively and continue that systematic racism. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that we control the narrative around our community, and make sure that just because the media is saying, oh, this boy was stabbed and this, that we say, yes, there's an issue there, but that is not an excuse for you to then to say, oh, therefore you're not going to investigate, therefore you're not going to take it seriously, therefore you're not going to police the streets properly. That, you know, that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. And you have to treat us with respect, not because we treat ourselves any particular way or not any particular way, but because we're human beings and we deserve to be treated with respect. You can't tell me that because I'm Black and the crime in the Black community is at a certain percentage, that therefore I'm now deserving of discrimination. That does not equate. I don't commit crime. So you can't tell me that you equate that to, oh, but your community do this, so therefore I don't know how to treat you. How dare you? I don't say, oh, let me go and look at the stats in the Asian community and therefore let me go and treat them a certain way, because actually I've seen that they don't even do this, or they're not even the crimes they commit, but the way they live. You know, we all hear rumors and stereotypes of various
races
and race communities. But I can't now use that as an excuse. But look how they live, look how they do this, look how they do that, and therefore I don't respect them. It's not an excuse. And I think that is something that we need to make sure that whatever we've been taught in the Black community, we undo that thinking and we undo that mind frame that we have. We have to say to ourselves, just because this is what I've been fed in my 30-something years, let me undo that and actually look at the real issue here. The real issue is that those people that are potentially committing those crimes in those areas where where Black people live, you have to remember, I always say this, look at the roots. Look at the root. Well, at the end of the day, if you're looking at estates, ask yourself, why did they send all these underfunded communities to certain estates? Why did they put us in those areas? Why do they say, this all connected?
No, Daphne, you're so right. And like, especially with me, you know, like with the whole Grenfell thing as well, and like working for them and everything, I just look at it and I think, you people are really disgusting. Like, they literally just put you all there in a high tide. Like, I honestly feel like the amount of people that died, I don't want to use the word intentional, but they just thought, you know what, it is what it is. Like, we'll save the statistic to make it look fine. Like, and we tried to do something.
Like Grenfell has happened.
This is Kensington.
Isn't it like
rich
3 years
borough,
now?
Like, going to the fourth.
This is the fourth year. The anniversary is
next month. Next month.
Crazy.
Next month.
Crazy. I can't believe.
Was it in July or was it in June? It was June, no?
I think it was July. Yeah, it was July. And like, I think, like, isn't Kensington and Chelsea the Queen's borough? But yet this is going on down the road from the Queen. Like, no, this is just.
Well,
for me, that's just
that the Queen has her own motives, boy. She was. That's what the people have been saying. That when it comes to the Queen, she's like, "I'll take you out if I need to, boy."
Wait, hold on. Saying that, have you guys seen this anonymous person, the video?
Yeah.
And how he's going to expose all these people.
He should expose them all, bro.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Who's the anonymous person? I'm gonna go Google.
No one knows who anonymous is.
It's not a person, it's a group of hackers.
Yeah, it's a group of people, yeah.
Oh, so let me go do my Googles.
It reminds me of Mr. Exposer. Or the Exposer.
Georgina, do the thing again. Do the Exposer.
No, not everyday Exposer.
Speaking of the Exposer, I watched the interview with DZ Mills and Pastor Toby.
Not everyday Exposer, bruv, please.
Wait, Pastor Toby's still doing interviews?
I watched that actually, Daphne.
Yeah.
I thought he would have disappeared by now.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting as well.
Which one? The one with CC Mills?
Yeah.
I have to go and watch it.
You thought it was interesting?
Do you know why? Because I think this was the most I've ever heard him speak. So it was just good to see what he was about. Obviously, I thought half of what he was saying, I was just like, close your dirty mouth. But it was still a good watch.
Yeah, I was kind of like you. I have never heard him speak, so I was just like, oh.
But then when he was asked questions about his wife, and I just thought he really thinks he's like a teenager. Basically, I think he thinks he's a young boy at heart, and he thinks he's mandem.
My thing is, you can't even be honest about whether you've got children or not. She
didn't
ask you
to.
The thing is, she didn't ask you to show marriage. But she didn't ask you to show you a picture of your children. She didn't ask you to tell you her kids' names. She didn't ask you to say, oh, what are your children's names? What school do they go to? Yeah. She asked you a simple question. Do you have kids? I prefer not to talk about that. I'm not going to answer that.
No, I'm not going to answer that.
That was weird. What do you think the rationale for that was? I couldn't understand.
Maybe he thinks if they're gonna come for me, I don't want him to know that I got kids or something.
But then you would just say no.
Yeah, and not even just that. Even the way he spoke about his wife, he spoke about in riddles, like because Zizi was just like,
"Are you married?" Like, they said, "Are you married?
Are you married?" Because people say that that you've obviously got a wife, and blah blah blah. She's obviously not there because the church is obviously full of young people. And he said, I am. Like he couldn't even answer a straight.
He's annoying.
I hate when someone can't answer just a straightforward question.
Like he was quick to talk about designer. So I'm just like, sit down, please. And I don't believe he's just about to turn 40 either. He's definitely 46. He's 46, at least. I'm telling him his age.
And especially when he said, I'm not even meant to be here. Like, I should have left already.
With the UN, the United Nations.
Yeah. And then he said, the only reason I'm here because, I've got a job with the UN. And I shouldn't be here. Shut up! Like, where should you be? In prison.
His great escape, George.
It's his big head and his long jaw.
What's he talking about? He's got a job with the UN. The UN need to go to these trap houses and go and collect those kids and free them, set them free. I don't know what he's talking about.
When he was talking,
but the thing is, money.
I started feeling like, I felt like I don't know, like,
Daphne, are you starting to understanding him?
No. I almost felt like he had a plan. The plan was executed and the plan went a bit left. I kind of feel like, because when he was talking about it, I was like, oh, it makes sense.
Oh, no, he was talking some
I think this is what I think, that he had a plan and he went left.
That's what I felt like. I was like, because when he was talking about that exception of it and like the whys, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You do that, but then it almost sounded like the people that he put in place, what they did wrong was ordaining the young people and be like calling them ministers and pastors because
so quickly.
You don't just do that because these people are not trustworthy. They don't know anything, and they're Christians, overnight Christians. You don't just be putting people in positions.
No, you need to train up a child in the way that they should go.
And
I don't believe that because sorry, I've got a lag. Sorry. Oh, now none of us are talking.
We're waiting for you, Sister Georgina.
Oh, sorry. I don't know whether my screen is stopped or not. Okay, so no. What I was going to say is, I don't believe that because at the end of the day, when they're doing ordinations within their church, he is the person that is ordaining every one of those people. He is ordaining them. Like they will say, oh my God, my pastor, my father, Pastor me, he done this, he done that. And they'll all be saying that, he ordained them and everything. So he cannot say that, oh, he didn't know. And the worst thing, I think the worst part of that interview is that they got someone like Zizi Mills, who is not a born again Christian, who does not go to church, who knows 3 or 4 Bible verses that she probably just quickly Googled before that interview took place. And I felt like he rubbished her. I felt like he rubbished her to the point where she naturally had to almost defend him to some degree because she knew that she kind of had no legs to stand on. You can't, with somebody like Pastor Toby, you need a Bible-believing, tongue-talking, someone who knows the Bible in and out that can come back on fire, scripture after scripture, and not even just any pastor, because at the end of the day, he calls himself a pastor. The people in his church call themselves pastors, so we don't need just any pastor to respond to him. We need someone who knows the word of God through and through, and that he can't run rings around. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would have requested and have asked to do an interview with Pastor Toby. So you're telling me
that's why Zizi was going on how she was going on.
The one person he chooses to speak to is Zizi Mills.
Yeah.
Are you being for real?
He knows why he went on that show, because he knew he could rubbish her. He knew he could rubbish her.
But do you think it's also because he can still get hold of the younger generation of the youth
through
her, because she has a lot of young followers
through her.
Yeah,
exactly. And not even just that. If you notice in her interview, she tried to talk about some interesting things, but she evidently didn't do any research. She evidently didn't maybe ask the sorts of questions that she should have asked. I mean, at the end of the day, the Exposer gave her entire interview that she could have run her interview based on. She was saying that, they have said that, that what about the trap houses, asking ambiguous questions. What kind of response is that? What kind of question is, what about the trap houses? What about the trap houses? Do you understand? You have to be specific.
You need to say, tell me about what goes on.
You can't give him an open-ended question because he will spin it. He will spin it.
Or he'll answer a question with a question.
That's what happened in that situation. I just felt like he done what he wanted to do with her. He ran rings around her, and then the most annoying thing is that she was paying attention to stupid things like, oh, so you offend with Fendi? Oh, guys, how much is your watch? That watch cost alone 50,000. That's 50 bags. 50 bags, just like that. Okay, your shoes are Valentina. Okay, that costs £5,000. Why are you bothered about those sorts of things?
She was gassing him up too, basically. She knew what she was doing. Yeah. She was gassing
why are you talking about that? That's not important in the grand scheme of it all. Okay, fine. He wears designer. We know he wears designer. He drives around in a Rolls Royce.
Not about his wardrobe.
Exactly. We don't care about that point.
Like he always refers to it. That's the language that
the youth, the generation
Z, whatever they're called, that's the language they speak. They speak £5,000 watch, £5,000 shoe, £2,000 whatever.
And he likes to brag about him being an ex-billion millionaire, and now because of the church, it's all gone down the drain. And no, so who is funding this lifestyle? He claims he does not get paid by the church. Actually, no, George, he mentioned he had various other businesses. That's what it was.
Wait,
so he was saying that he said he had various business.
Yeah.
No, he was saying that his church has made him that he's lost money from being in church. He hasn't made money.
No longer, yeah.
But then again, he's always contradicted himself, because again, if she had done her research, she would have seen that he's part of Pastor Toby's story was always that he came to the UK, he didn't have any money, he was living in his cousin's house, which is John Boyega, the Star Wars guy, that he was living in his family's house, and he didn't have any money. He was earning £400 a month, and he was paying £200 to the church. That was Pastor Toby's story. So if she had done the due diligence to do all the research, she would have known that. But because all she was thinking about, what watch are you wearing? You're not even wearing a Rolex. What was the brand that she said? What was the brand that he was wearing? What was the brand that he was wearing? AP. Oh my God, and then after, and they said, I didn't even buy this watch. Somebody gave it to me as I was on my way. On your way to an interview. Someone just so happened to give you a £50,000 watch.
Because he's passed the time,
I don't even have a teacup.
Do you think he believes his delusion? Because there's some people that
he does.
He's living in a bubble.
They're just I know, trust me. Somebody...
No, he's living in a bubble.
How can you say somebody just, as you were on your way, somebody stopped you and gave you a £50,000 watch? Who gave it to you? He said, no, they stopped me and they gave it to me. Who is they?
Lies.
I was watching that interview. And then I was watching that interview and I thought, Zizi, man, please cancel it. And then when she finished, and then the whole thing got on my nerves. It was a waste,
and she was looking for a friend.
It was a waste of an hour. It was a waste of an hour,
because until Georgina said what she said, obviously I took that. I don't know much about Pastor Toby background, but I guess you just saying that's one small thing about his
the £200.
I'm like, that interview was a bit trash.
The interview was so trash, and that's why I'm saying if she'd done her research, because That is his whole premise of seed giving. You know that in their church it's about give everything, because they follow what Pastor Toby done, because that's what he preached that he done, and that's the reason why he is as successful as he is. Give everything whatsoever. Like he said, he gave money to his pastor, he gave money to the church. He only had 100 or 200 pounds left over. He was sleeping on his cousin's couch, John Boyega's couch, John Boyega's parents' couch. That is his story, but she did not do any research. That was her problem. She was a fan. She went there as a groupie on her own show.
Yeah, she was starstruck.
That's what she done.
She listened to a groupie on her own show.
Yeah,
she did.
A shame, because actually it could have really helped a lot of people, because obviously when she started asking him about, you know, the people that had brought cases against the church and stuff like that, I felt like there wasn't any real conclusive, like, you know, like there's no conclusion around, okay, why would those people say that? Like, and he just basically,
she didn't do her research.
He basically said, he took no responsibility, and he basically said, if people are doing things, they were in relationships and their relationship went bad, and that's why they're now coming to hold grievance against the person.
And then on top of that, she asked a stupid question like, "Oh, what about TK?" And he's and what about your conversation with TK? And again,
who's that?
She's so silly.
I've never met him.
She's so silly. Yeah, he was like, I've never met him. I've only had one conversation with him when he gave his testimony. And again, if she had done her research, she would have known that.
Yeah,
but she doesn't. She didn't do her research. The exposer gave an account of each of the pastors in the church. Exposed text messages, group chats, Maria Mola. She didn't mention once in that entire interview.
I was actually waiting for that.
She went the entire interview because she probably doesn't even know who that is.
Yeah.
She didn't do any research.
She didn't
do any research. It's a whole trash.
All she knew was AP Watch, offending with Fendi. That's what she knows. and the 3 Bible verses that she quickly memorized it before he entered the room.
You're so shit.
That is palm trees.
Fending with Fendi.
Hey, Zizi, she don't come for us.
She might come for me, you know, after she sees this.
Don't come for me. I come for you.
Actually, hashtag Zizi, give you some interviewing skills, boo-boo.
No, the shade is all over there. What were we just talking about anyway?
Anyway, we were just talking about black people supporting each other, right? No, but what I also said is that you don't have to support everything. If you don't agree with something,
I'm only joking.
Yeah, no,
I can be pro-black, but I don't have to support everything. Please, I didn't support that at all. I know. You're pulling my arm, eh? You're pulling my head.
Do you know? I hate when
you're pulling my head
because I'm not supporting that pastor. So I don't care.
Yeah. No, but I remember when someone said to me, "It's pulling your leg, right?" Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pulling your leg.
And someone said, "I'm just pulling your head," and I'm like, "No,
"Oh my gosh,
leave my head alone."
Who said that? I would have said, "Am I Barbie?" Like pulling my head.
Pulling my head, and leave my blossom head alone about you pulling my head.
Thanks for listening to another episode of And on that note. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, tell a friend to tell a friend, your aunties, your uncles, your sisters, and the whole shambaz. Thank you. Bye.